After finishing her morning run, the wife returned home. Her usually lazy husband unexpectedly came out, reeking of sweat. Looking at the mess in the house, she still didn't know that all of this was a facade created by her husband. Normally, he was an extremely sloppy homebody, but in reality, he was actually a master from a family of ninjas. Every morning after his wife left the house, he would begin his training, performing shuriken techniques with incredible skill. On the surface, he was an employee at a delivery company, but at critical moments, the entire company would transform into modern ninjas. Only his close friend and colleague knew his true identity, but what he didn't know was that his wife was also a top-level expert who would often accidentally use light-footed martial arts during her morning runs. "Oh no! I accidentally revealed my true skills." Neither of them knew each other's real identity, and in their ordinary life, they were growing more and more distant. Even their fellow ninja junior didn't think much of their marriage. A female expert like you definitely can't get along with an ordinary person. The next day, the woman received a new mission. Her superiors ordered her to assassinate a high-ranking councilman. At the same time, her husband's company also mobilized all its members because they had received word and were going to protect the councilman. The two of them happened to be on opposing sides. The woman went to a secret base to prepare her equipment and get ready to act the next day. When she got home, she saw her sloppy husband playing video games. Hearing him ask her to make dinner made her even more frustrated. "I've been busy all day and still have to take care of this big baby." What made her even more upset was that after she finished cooking, her husband didn't even eat. "I had curry for lunch too." On top of that, seeing her beloved book being used as a table wedge led to another argument. The man was also fed up with this kind of life. He remembered the happy times they once shared, not knowing when things had come to this. His wife had told him before that the book was something she had treasured since childhood. He decided to try to save their relationship, sincerely apologized to his wife, and suggested they go to the restaurant where they had their first date at 7 p.m. Seeing his sincerity, his wife agreed. That afternoon, the wife began her mission, successfully infiltrating the councilman's house with a drone. But the sound of the drone was noticed by the sharp-eared husband, who threw a shuriken and destroyed it. The sudden loss of the drone made the woman suspicious, not knowing it was her husband's doing. Checking the time and seeing it was almost time for their date, she hurried to get ready. However, the councilman, alarmed by the drone, ordered everyone to stay on guard all night. There was nothing she could do, and she was left disappointed. That night, she left divorce papers and moved out, not replying to her husband's messages for days. While he was worrying, enemies had already infiltrated the mansion, and his colleagues were no match for them. In the ensuing chase, the man used his family's shuriken technique, but to his surprise, the opponent easily dodged it. Seeing the familiar figure of the fleeing enemy, Goro was stunned. How could he have known that the expert just now was his wife, Ying, whom he had been married to for 2.5 years? When they returned to the mansion, they found the councilman already dead. Even more devastating, when he got home, he found the divorce papers on the table. It turned out his wife had long had enough of Goro's extreme sloppiness and moved in with her junior. Her fellow ninja junior suggested, "If you just tell Goro your ninja identity, wouldn't all these problems be solved?" But Ying refused and brought up last night's assassination attempt. It turned out her mission wasn't to kill, but to find evidence of the councilman's drug use. After using a tranquilizer gun to take out the enemies, she had just taken the evidence when she discovered the councilman was already dead. What shocked her even more was that, as a master of light-footed martial arts, she was actually injured by a shuriken from one of the men. Who still uses shuriken these days? Iga is really outdated. Meanwhile, since poison was found in the councilman's body, and the opponent was skilled enough to dodge Goro's shuriken, the person must be a Koga ninja. Goro was immediately assigned to investigate the matter, staking the reputation of the Iga clan. Understood. But he had no idea that the expert from last night was his wife, whom he missed day and night. Seeing all his messages unread, he resolved to change his lazy ways, started cleaning the house, scrubbing the toilet, and sent photos of his efforts to his wife. But Ying didn't even look at them. He insisted on going home on time to clean, but his friend told him there would be a surprise at the bar tonight, saying an important person would be coming. Unexpectedly, his senior helped him out by opening all 125 of his unread messages to Ying. Don't just open them. Now they're marked as read. Outwardly, Ying resisted, but seeing all the caring messages and selfies, she couldn't help but be moved. At this moment, her junior suggested going to a ninja bar, not knowing Goro was there. Seeing his messages marked as read, Goro got excited and happily sent more messages. "You finally read my messages." Finally, Ying couldn't hold back and decided to go home and have a loving moment with her husband, leaving the bar immediately. Meanwhile, the important guest at the bar was none other than the Iga clan's young lady, who was also Goro's childhood friend. When she heard that Goro's wife wanted a divorce, she was moved. When she took Goro home, she finally confessed her feelings. But when Ying returned home, she found the house still a mess. Just as she was about to forgive him after seeing her repaired book, she heard a commotion outside the window and saw Goro being confessed to. She was devastated. Seeing the lights on at home, the excited Goro thought his wife had changed her mind. But because of what happened, they argued again and parted unhappily. The next day, the woman received another mission at a disguised snack shop. She was assigned to stop a bombing attack at the councilman's speech. But she didn't know that this attack was actually bait set by the Koga clan to lure out the Iga ninjas. What would happen next? A delivery man brought a special menu, but the woman only cared about scanning the code on it, which was actually how she received her mission. She began her operation while her husband slept. On the surface, she worked at a pharmacy, but in reality, she was a super ninja with maxed out agility and rare mastery of light-footed martial arts. But she had no idea that her goofy husband, who worked at a delivery company, was actually part of an enemy ninja organization, and the whole company was full of enemy ninjas. They were preparing a bombing attack to lure her out. To avoid suspicion, the leader ordered everyone to bring their families to the event. Goro didn't want to go, since he and his wife were about to divorce after a series of misunderstandings. But his colleague told him this might be a chance to reconcile with Ying. With no choice, Goro found Ying and handed her the event flyer. She was stunned, as she had received the same mission the day before, but had no idea her husband was her opponent. He also doubted she would agree, but to his surprise, she did, not knowing this played right into her hands. Lucky, now I can get in openly. Goro was surprised by her gentleness. Meanwhile, his organization had already installed the bomb. The next day, the event began, and the two dressed up and attended, each searching for the enemy. The Iga are among them. The Koga are among them. There was only an hour left until the bomb exploded. Ying and the wives of Goro's colleagues all complained about their sloppy husbands, not knowing their ninja husbands were discussing their mission. Suddenly, an accident occurred. A girl fell from a tree while playing, but was caught by Ying using her light-footed skills, shocking everyone and earning the admiration of Goro's junior. Ying brushed it off as being naturally fast. At that moment, an uninvited guest arrived, Goro's childhood friend Sayo. Remembering what she saw the other night, Ying was furious, but she didn't know the girl had another identity. She was the Iga clan's young lady, there to deliver new orders. Originally, the bomb was just to lure the enemy, but now on her father's orders, it would really be detonated. Goro was shocked. Isn't that murder? It's for the Iga clan. As a ninja, his duty was to obey orders. Soon the councilman arrived and the countdown to the explosion began. But when the time came, the bomb didn't go off. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out Ying had captured the bomber the night before, forced out the bomb's location, and defused it in advance. Her junior praised her skills, but they didn't know the Iga had prepared a backup bomb, placed in the photo area. Ying received a message from her family, and seeing the councilman on stage and the imminent explosion, she rushed forward, but Goro saw her. Wife! He threw himself on her, shielding her from danger. The next second, the bomb exploded in the air. It turned out Ying's junior, disguised, had found the bomb and thrown it into the air, averting disaster. Ying stared in a daze at her husband, who had risked his life to save her and even twisted her ankle. On the way home, thinking of how Goro had always protected her from danger, she wondered if maybe this sloppy man wasn't so bad after all. Ying? Did you gain weight? Huh? Their relationship seemed to be improving, But when they got home, Goro accidentally knocked over Yingying's bag, revealing the bomb's location map. Yingying also felt something was off. How did Goro know to shield her in advance? Could it be he knew about the bomb beforehand? The woman, a ninja, skillfully caught a shuriken, only to find it was a toy thrown by a friend's daughter. Almost a disaster. She had nearly exposed her ninja identity to her husband the day before. The daytime banquet had a bombing incident, and when she got home, her bag dropped the bomb's location map. She didn't know the bomb was actually planted by her ninja husband, which was why he protected her in advance. Both began to suspect each other's identity. This must be the work of the Iga. But Goro can't be a ninja. The first bomb must have been defused by the Koga. But how could Yingying be a ninja? Goro decided to test his wife, but she asked first how he knew about the explosion. He quickly lied that the display board almost fell, and he was afraid it would hit her. Makes sense. As for the map, she said it was a photo spot recommended by a friend. A bit far-fetched, but okay. For now, their suspicions were eased, but soon Goro became certain of his wife's ninja identity. Meanwhile, the upper ninja Otonashi, in charge of the bombing incident, noticed something odd in the surveillance footage. Goro's wife, Ahwa, who knew his true identity, approached to ask, but Otonashi told her not to meddle. The next day, Otonashi mysteriously disappeared with the surveillance video. Since only a few people knew about the bomb, Otonashi became a suspect in leaking the incident. Goro had to find Otonashi quickly. At the same time, Ahwa found Goro's wife to ask about her husband's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, Sayo, the Iga young lady, also showed up, making all sorts of green tea remarks about how close she and Goro were as children, and quietly confirmed with Ahwa whether Otonashi had been found. Yingying said her marriage was a failure. Both women revealed their flaws, not knowing this was the kind of married life Ahwa longed for. As Sayo left, she mocked Yingying for not truly knowing Goro. Do you really know each other? But I know his true self. Are you trying to pick a fight? Yingying was so angry she almost used ninjutsu. Goro finally found Otonashi at a place they used to go as kids. Otonashi was touched that his friend found him. I saw your post on your alternate account. My alternate account? The reason he hid the video was because he bumped into a strange woman at the event and was embarrassed by his expression. That night, Yingying and Ahwa found the two of them and told Otonashi not to hide the fact that Ahwa sneaked out. Otonashi smiled because Ahwa knew about his ninja identity. Yingying, you don't understand Ahwa. You don't understand me either. The wife admitted her many flaws, saying she had always just played the role of a good wife, but wanted them to be honest about their flaws. Stop looking down on people. I've always worked hard for you and our daughter because we're family. Otonashi finally apologized. Seeing the two reconcile, everyone was happy. Goro also suggested starting over with Yingying, but the next day he was suddenly summoned. The enemy ninja's surveillance video had been found, and his boss wanted Goro to identify the person. Seeing the tall, thin figure in the video, Goro panicked, because the person's movements were exactly like his wife's. At that moment, he was finally sure Yingying was a Koga ninja. The couple whose relationship had soured put on fake smiles at breakfast. The husband pretended to be happy eating pancakes, but was so scared he washed his face immediately after. Even when his wife came home from work the night before, she almost kicked him. And though she held back, he was already sweating in fear while pretending to sleep. Scared me to death. What was going on? It turned out the husband, who appeared to be a delivery guy, was actually an Iga ninja. But when he saw the video of the enemy Koga ninja, he realized the figure and movements were exactly like his wife's. Anxious, he didn't know what to do. How could my wife, who I see every day, be a ninja? Even getting a message from her after work startled him. To confirm her identity, he recalled her whereabouts on the dates the expert appeared and found that every time his wife was missing. Plus, he found the bomb location map in her bag. The more he thought about it, the more suspicious it seemed. He went home, opened the secret room, and checked the records of Koga ninjas. Since Koga were skilled in poison, most of them worked in the medical field in modern times, and his wife just happened to work at a pharmacy. Yingying also began to suspect her husband after an incident. Her older sister was critically ill from food poisoning, and she and her younger sister begged their father to use the resurrection technique to save her, but he refused. That technique can only be used once, whether by the user or the recipient, because it's too dangerous. He recalled that their father had been a Koga upper ninja in his youth. By tracking the secretary of an enemy party official, he finally got evidence of bribery, and the secretary was arrested. But half a year later, his wife and eldest daughter were poisoned in revenge by the secretary, who had just been released from prison and was actually an Iga ninja. Fortunately, the two younger daughters were unharmed. To save his eldest daughter, he used the family's secret resurrection technique. But since it could only be used once, his poor wife passed away. Luckily, the eldest daughter had trained in ninjutsu since childhood and survived. The father decided to pass the secret technique to Yingying. He also found out that most modern Iga ninjas were hiding in the delivery industry, and the headquarters in Tokyo was the city's postal company. Isn't that where Goro works? Impossible. He's so slow. How could he be a ninja? Don't underestimate the Iga. Yingying didn't believe her goofy husband could be a ninja, but her father told her to be careful, so she decided to test him. What's with this murderous aura? In the end, she didn't act. To find out the truth, Yingying tracked her husband's location and followed him, discovering he was with his childhood friend, looking suspicious. Where are they going? A hotel? Otonashi, also a delivery man, suddenly entered the building, which was named after Hattori Hanzo. Could this be their headquarters? She was right. It was the Iga headquarters. Half believing, she returned home, anxious about what to do, when she noticed the irregular bookshelf. Opening it, she found a secret room. Oh my God, this is solid proof. Now both were sure of each other's identities. Yingying took out various weapons and waited for her husband to come home, sending him a message. Can you buy a bottle of red wine on your way back? Is this the Last Supper? The Last Supper, huh? When Goro got home, the two greeted each other with smiles as usual, but a big battle was inevitable. The husband, smiling, hid a dragon-slaying saber behind his back, while the virtuous wife held a heavenly sword. Clearly, this was their last supper. As both had confirmed the other's hidden identity, they were enemy ninjas. They both realized their identities had been exposed. Together, they had at least 800 tricks up their sleeves. The steak was ready, and when the husband went to get it, the wife beat him to it. He panicked, thinking she had gotten the upper hand. What's wrong? Nothing. Since Koga ninjas were skilled in poison, the man was too scared to eat until he saw his wife take a bite. Both hesitated about whether to make a move, but in the end, nothing happened. They washed up together as usual, and the wife said she wanted to sleep on the sofa that night. The man opened his weapons cabinet, and both decided to act first thing in the morning. Sure enough, at dawn, they started fighting, breaking her beloved book in the process. You broke my favorite book! Who told you to use it as a shield? They stopped pretending and began a hand-to-hand showdown, fighting from the living room to the kitchen. In the middle of the fight, the crab Yingying had ordered arrived, so they had to answer the door. The delivery man thought they were a loving couple, not knowing they were holding shuriken behind their backs. After he left, they paused. The crab will spoil if we don't put it in the fridge. Okay. They quietly put the crab away, then resumed fighting, finally admitting each other's identities. The husband wondered why Yingying married him. Because I wanted to live an ordinary life. What a coincidence. So did I. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. They fought all morning, refraining from using ninjutsu to avoid destroying the house. Just as they were facing off, guests arrived. It was Goro's Iga colleague Otonashi and his family, there to thank Yingying for her help last time and bringing gifts. Yingying was surprised to learn that even Otonashi's wife, Ahwa, was an Iga ninja. Are there really good people in Iga? Who told you there aren't? To avoid making a scene, the couple decided to call a truce and hurriedly cleaned up. Otonashi's ninja-obsessed daughter immediately spotted a shuriken on the floor. Nice teamwork. The couple was embarrassed. Goro brushed it off as a machine part. To avoid suspicion, they acted more loving than ever. The little girl pestered Goro to buy popsicles and worried he'd fool around. Ying Ying quickly sent a warning on WeChat. Now that his identity was exposed, Goro didn't bother pretending and sent a ninja emoji he'd never used before, leaving his wife stunned. While Goro was out, Ahua again expressed her envy of the couple, and Otonashi said Goro had changed a lot because of Ying Ying. He was very determined to convince me you were his destined one. Hearing this, Ying Ying was deeply moved, but they were unable to control any of this. Koga and Iga have been rivals since ancient times. So when they returned home and locked the door, the two continued their fierce battle, fighting from sunset until evening. Yet during a break, they couldn't help but reminisce about their days in love, when each thought the other was just an ordinary person and life was so good. 2.5 years of a loving relationship can't be faked, but then they remembered they belonged to enemy organizations. I am a proud son of Iga, and I am a daughter of Koga. The two continued to fight, torn by their feelings. But as they fought, they could no longer control themselves and ended up kissing. Exhausted, they collapsed, then passionately embraced each other. But they didn't know that the Iga young lady had already discovered Ying Ying's identity because she noticed Goro's strange behavior after seeing the surveillance footage. Upon closer inspection, she found a face similar to Ying Ying's in the footage. No way, how could this be? Meanwhile, Ying Ying's father also confirmed Goro's ninja identity through the latest intelligence. My son-in-law, Itami Yokenkiro, Naruto dialogue. The female influencer opened Douyin and found herself being cyberbullied, and she always felt like someone nearby was watching her. What she didn't know was that the next day's comments were even more chilling. The person even knew what she was wearing. She must have been followed. It turned out the girl was a ninja streamer, and her two older sisters were real ninjas. The second sister was the pillar of the Koga ninja clan. Even more outrageous, her brother-in-law Goro was actually an enemy Iga ninja, and the two had just discovered each other's identities. To protect their love, Goro decided to find the real culprit and clear his wife's name. But they didn't know that Iga's young lady, Sayo, had already discovered Ying Ying's identity, and a Koga intelligence agent secretly informed Ying Ying that she had been exposed. The enemy has been watching you in secret. Just as Ying Ying was confused, Sayo appeared nearby and repeatedly tested her during their conversation. Miss Ying Ying, you have such a great figure. She already suspects that the tall female ninja is me. With legs that long, you must run fast. No, I run as slow as I crawl. It seems Sayo already suspected her identity. At the same time, she received a call from her sister and learned her younger sister was being followed. The person cyberbullying her sister online was even called Shuriken, making both sisters suspect the person was from Iga. After all, last time, it was her sister who resolved the bombing incident. But Goro told her that Iga would never stoop to such dirty tricks and promised to help investigate. For her sister's safety, Ying Ying decided to let her stay at her place for now. But they didn't know the villain always knew her sister's location. Her bag had been fitted with a tracker days ago. Meanwhile, Sayo began testing Goro to confirm Ying Ying's identity. You mentioned divorce before. I'm not getting divorced anymore. Why? I've thought it through. I can't live without Ying Ying. At that moment, Sayo confirmed Goro's position. And from the suspicious person recorded on surveillance during the last bombing, the way she brushed her hair looked familiar. Sure enough, after watching the footage repeatedly, she realized the woman who suddenly appeared and brushed her hair did it exactly the same way. It was Ying Ying's sister. For her sister's safety, the couple told her to stay home and not go out. When Goro arrived at work, his temp co-worker said he had discovered the stalker's identity. As a ninja fan, he was actually the sister's biggest fan and had noticed the negative comments early on, vowing to find the pervert. He pretended to be a hater and messaged the stalker, gaining his trust. I totally get it. Watching you roast her is so satisfying. Turns out he was an ally. Unexpectedly, the stalker was someone who had once had a crush on her sister and even admitted to putting a tracker on her bag. Goro quickly told Ying Ying, but when they tried to contact her, they found out her sister had already gone out to the convenience store at the entrance. Xiaokei, throw away your bag and run. But it was too late. The pervert had arrived and chased Xiaokei. As an intelligence agent, Xiaokei didn't know ninjutsu and was helpless against the pervert. At this critical moment, fortunately, Ying Ying and Goro arrived in time, and the pervert was finally brought to justice. But just as they breathed a sigh of relief, they didn't know Sayo had witnessed everything. Xiao Ke even went to thank the co-worker whose information saved her. Only then did he realize the customer in front of him was the ninja streamer he liked. Meanwhile, Sayo had already told Otonashi the truth. Goro's wife and Xiao Ke were both Koga ninjas, and with such high-level martial arts, there was no mistake. They would show no mercy to Goro for betraying the organization. At the same time, Ying Ying was praising her husband for cooking for the first time when she suddenly received a call from Koga. The Fate Symphony played on the other end instantly made her shudder. It was the emergency danger signal. Sure enough, just as they were about to leave, Iga's people were already at the door. "They're here for me." It turned out they had already discovered his wife's identity, so Goro had to face their interrogation alone. But his wife knew her husband couldn't lie. As expected, when they accused Ying Ying of being a Koga ninja. "Huh? How could that be? Your acting is terrible." But Sayo pointed out that the figure in the surveillance looked exactly like Ying Ying, and they even caught her throwing a shuriken while saving someone. "How do you explain being so skilled with shuriken?" "Skilled? I haven't used them in over 10 years. Goro decided to play dumb. "Is this a shuriken?" "Yes, that's right. Definitely a shuriken." "That's such a lame excuse." Goro had to say Ying Ying was just a ninja fan. "Huh? You might as well say I like playing darts. Just don't connect it to ninjas." "Actually, she's really good at darts." "Hey, he can't hear me, right?" Seeing he was still pretending, Sayo showed more evidence of Ying Ying's skills and pointed out that the girl she just saved was the same Koga ninja who stopped the bombing last time. Goro insisted Ying Ying was just being a good Samaritan and didn't know the girl, but she called her by name, Xiao Ke. "See? Xiao! It's over. Maybe there are sparrows flying around." "What? So awkward." Seeing Goro still playing dumb, Sayo didn't stop questioning. She noticed the hot pot and utensils at home and deduced Ying Ying was hiding there. But after searching, didn't find her. It turned out Ying Ying, a master of light-footed martial arts, had already escaped through the window. After they left, Goro went to Ying Ying's father's place to meet up, only to be subdued by his father-in-law. "Ying Ying, this guy is Iga." "Yeah, how did you know?" "Because his wife was killed by Iga ninjas. He would never accept Goro from Iga. Koga and Iga will never have a good ending." So they decided to find the real killer and clear his wife's name. But the next day, Ying Ying was already being followed by Iga, and even Goro was suspected by his organization. Goro's best friend warned him that if he sheltered Koga, his whole family could be hunted down. To avoid Iga's surveillance and investigate the truth, Goro tried hard to shake them off, unexpectedly getting help from a strange woman. "Thank you, miss." "Don't mention it, brother-in-law. I'm Ying Ying's eldest sister." The two returned to his father-in-law's place, and he finally learned from him that Iga was responsible for the murder, making him gradually lose faith in Iga. Meanwhile, Ying Ying found a clue through Koga intelligence. The flower gang in front of her had dealings with the murdered councilman. Ying Ying quickly took them down and threatened their boss for information. I'll talk. Good boy." But when she saw the footage of the transaction, she was shocked. As Goro arrived at headquarters, Ying Ying hurriedly contacted him because the person in the footage was Goro's best friend, Otonashi, who was also the first to discover the councilman's body. Just as Goro was in disbelief, he was attacked from behind. Goro, what's wrong?" When he woke up, he confirmed the culprit's identity. It was his best friend. Only then did they realize they were caught in a bigger conspiracy. "What's going on?" As the lights suddenly turned on, the Koga female upper ninja who broke into enemy headquarters was surrounded by Iga ninjas. But she was not afraid. Her husband had been framed by Iga for sheltering her. What Goro didn't expect was that the one who set him up was his childhood friend from Iga. When Ying Ying first came to enemy headquarters to rescue her husband, she was discovered. She thought no one could catch up to her light-footed skills, but the enemy was prepared. Danger! At this critical moment, 2 smoke bombs appeared out of nowhere. Ying Ying used the chance to gather chakra in her feet and easily leaped over the high wall. To her surprise, her rescuer was Goro's silly little brother, who was clearly also a ninja. Could he be a Koga spy? You're Koga, right? No, I'm Iga. Huh? It turned out the boy was also secretly investigating the councilman's murder and had witnessed Ying Ying's skills, so he was sure she wasn't the killer and wanted to work with her. According to Ying Ying's investigation, Otonashi was highly suspicious, but Iga was convinced the killer was Koga's Ying Ying, so Goro became a traitor for protecting her. Sayo also refused to believe Otonashi was the killer. She liked Goro and thought he was just trying to protect Ying Ying. Moved by his friend's sincerity, Otonashi decided to tell the truth. The councilman, short on staff, had privately asked him to complete a transaction, which explained the surveillance footage, but it only happened once. Meanwhile, Ying Ying and A Liang began their operation. They went to the apartment Otonashi rented, and after some probing, found that Otonashi's wife, Ahua, didn't know he was a Koga ninja. While borrowing the bathroom, Ying Ying searched Otonashi's room for evidence. But when she turned around, she found Otonashi's daughter, Xiao Xiang, standing there. Lady Ying Ying, what are you doing? Not knowing how to explain. Lady Ying Ying, I found you. You found me. So you two are playing ninja hide and seek. Luckily, A Liang helped her out. Then the two disguised themselves as police officers and found the councilman's former driver, who must know something. After some gentle intimidation from Ying Ying, the driver revealed that the councilman had met with someone before his death, another party's councilman. Ying Ying was stunned. Wasn't that the person Koga was assigned to protect last time? But they had to stop the investigation because A Liang just learned that Goro was about to be tortured by Iga. The two quickly took action. A Liang cut the power to Iga headquarters, and Ying Ying appeared behind Goro. But the blackout would only last 5 minutes. Just as Ying Ying tried to get Goro to leave, he refused and quickly pushed her out the door. Go! Goro! Hurry and run! But Ying Ying didn't have time to escape and didn't know why Goro wouldn't go with her. It turned out Otonashi had told Goro that if he chose to help his wife, Iga would hunt him forever. Sayo, who had always liked Goro, offered a proposal. If you marry into our family, you can become an upper ninja. As long as you marry me, I can guarantee Ying Ying's freedom and safety. So for his wife's safety, he had no choice. But Ying Ying was unafraid and asked to see Sayo. Unexpectedly, Sayo gave her a mission. The reward was Goro's freedom. The imprisoned man suddenly saw a ghostly figure moving toward him. It was Goro's little brother using invisibility to rescue him. Goro was shocked to learn he was also a ninja, but even more shocked to learn that his wife, who was in an enemy organization, had accepted Iga's mission to assassinate a councilman in order to save him. She had already disguised herself as a reporter and infiltrated the venue, aiming a Barrett at the councilman's head. Goro couldn't let his wife kill for him. Fortunately, with his little brother's smoke bombs, they escaped. Although his shuriken skills weren't great, Goro, though a lower ninja, already had the strength of an upper ninja. At this time, Otonashi realized Goro had escaped. When he caught up and was about to throw a shuriken, he remembered Goro hadn't betrayed the organization, so he couldn't bring himself to attack his friend. Just as Ying Ying was about to act, the councilman suddenly felt unwell, and everyone rushed to take him to the hospital. Ying Ying's disguised sister immediately took action. The two quickly took out several people during the blackout and joined Ying Ying. It turned out she never intended to assassinate the councilman. Her sister had just put several packets of laxative in his tea. Because the councilman knew the truth about the rival party leader Lao Wang's death, they staged a scene and kidnapped him. Her sister even threatened to livestream if he didn't talk, boasting about her 100,000 followers. Seeing the man unafraid, Ying Ying injected him with a drug. What did you give me? Viper venom. What? Viper? If you don't confess in 5 minutes, she'll smash the antidote. The man had no choice but to tell the truth. Some higher-ups planned to turn the resort into a nuclear waste site, and Lao Wang, who found out, threatened them and was silenced. But he didn't know who the killer was. After hearing this, Ying Ying smashed the antidote. What did you do? You're no good either. As the man cursed in despair, Ying Ying told him it was just glucose. At this time, Goro finally arrived and joined her. They hurried to the waste site and pretended to be influencers, interviewing passersby for information. They learned that a well-known person often came here. Who is it? What's his name? Feng Feng. Is it Feng Fucheng Yilang? Yes, that's him. It turned out to be Sayo's father, the real killer. But they didn't know that Feng Fu was already terminally ill, and the real mastermind was Sayo's grandfather, the leader of Iga. When Yingying's father mentioned that the man who killed their mother had a scar on his hand, Liang seemed to remember something. He had seen such a scar as a child. The latest intelligence shocked everyone. The Iga leader was actually the killer in disguise, Feng Fucheng Shui. To investigate the truth about Lao Wang's assassination, the couple went to the apartment he rented and found a narrow but passable exit. But as they were about to leave, Goro sensed something was wrong. Yingying, be careful. The shuriken user was Goro's childhood friend, Sayo. Jealousy had driven her mad, and she ignored Otonashi's advice. After Goro escaped, she applied for permission to use force. Hit in the heart, Goro collapsed. Goro! What are you trying to do to my daughter? Just now, the ninja couple broke into the boss's mansion, only to find he was waiting for them, surrounded by Iga elites. He showed them his son, who was in the late stages of lung cancer. He wanted to force Yingying, the only one who knew the reincarnation technique, to save him. Yingying, can you still use that technique? I don't even know. But how could Yingying agree to help the man who killed her mother and threw the ninja world into chaos? Sayo was shocked to hear this, and the reincarnation technique could only be used once. Yingying had already used it a few days ago. Back then, Goro had shielded her from a deadly shuriken, which was also poisoned. To save her husband, Yingying used the reincarnation technique. But Goro didn't know this after waking up. Before the final battle, they spent the happiest days together. But as soon as they went out, they were hunted by Iga. Fortunately, they were strong enough to defeat their enemies easily. Then they received a new mission, and to their shock, the location was Feng Fu's mansion. To find the truth, they came here. But he thought Yingying was acting and forced her to use the technique, insisting his son must stand at the top of the country. But Goro, a lower ninja, couldn't accept such a hypocritical leader. You never cared about the Iga people. You only use Iga for your own gain. What did you say? Yingying then showed the footage from the day the councilman was killed. The real killer was Sayo. This was the condition her grandfather gave her to inherit the position. But naive Sayo didn't know it was all a lie. I never said that. A woman as Iga's leader? Never. Sayo deeply regretted her actions. Because Yingying refused to use the technique, they were both captured. Unexpectedly, Otonashi couldn't stand Feng Fu's actions and helped Goro. Just as Feng Fu drew his 40-meter blade to attack Yingying, her father arrived. In a brief standoff, her father put down his sword. You who have abandoned the ninja's true heart are not worthy to be my opponent, because ninjas are supposed to sacrifice themselves to protect their people. But the greedy Feng Fu only knew how to use others. Soon the Iga Special Task Force would arrive, and Feng Fu would be severely punished. With their goal achieved, her father left gracefully. Yingying said nothing, and after saying goodbye to Goro, quickly left. After everything ended, Goro received Yingying's last letter. If the day comes when Iga and Koga are no longer enemies, maybe we'll meet again. Heartbroken, Goro ate the last meal Yingying made for him. 2 years passed. Feng Fu not only went to prison, but all his shady dealings were exposed. Otonashi, now with a happy family and a second child, became their director. Iga also had a wise new leader, Goro's little brother's mother, who immediately abolished the upper and lower ninja ranking system. In the end, Goro finally met Yingying again at the place where they first dated.